Today, I'm going to be looking at Bleacher Report's X Factors for the 24-25 season. Before going through this video, I wanted to make sure that I know how they're identifying X Factors, because to some people, an X Factor is the best player on the team or the most important player on the team, and here they have it labeled as NBA swing pieces, the players who may not be stars in the conventional sense, but who will still have an outsized impact on their teams in 2024-25. So now I get a decent idea of where they're going with this list. I've looked at maybe 5 names, so I don't know past that. Okay, so I'll just be going off the top as I read these. So first one up is Jaylen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks. I agree with this one. I think that this was a guy that I did not know much about until the start of last season. I was like, man, this dude should be starting, setting good screens. He can bring the ball up, plays fast, great athleticism, has good size, can do a little bit of everything. The three-point shot isn't there yet, but he's definitely working on it, and he'll definitely try to take some when they're available. I think that's going to really be a key to unlocking his potential, is that jump shot. And the Hawks are really going to need that, because I don't see that they really address that issue. Like, they have some shooting on the team, but it's not enough. And I'm really concerned for where this team's going to end up at the end of the season. I honestly don't think the Hawks are going to be very good. Boston Celtics, Xavier Tillman. I disagree with this one. This is, what is this? What is this X Factor? I get it. They're banking on him because Porzingis is going to be out to start the season. They named Luke Cornett here, but it's not Xavier Tillman. He's not the X Factor of this team. The X Factor of this team is the same X Factor that I believe was, if we're not considering Kristaps because he's going to be out, right? He would be my X Factor like he was last season. Obviously, if we're picking someone other than Porzingis, then I'm going to say Derek White. Coming back from the Olympics, he had a great season last year. Super impactful player. I think he dug the Celtics out of some really bad scenarios at times. Things were looking bad, and then he would just break them out of slumps on both ends. This dude, wherever you put him, he was productive. I can't say that Xavier Tillman is the X Factor when you have a guy like Drew Holiday and Derek White on that team, right? And we said non-stars. I don't want to stay too much time on that. I don't want to spend too much time. They have Noah Clowney for the Brooklyn Nets. I strongly disagree. I think it's Cam Thomas. 22 years old, showed a lot of things, right? Had flashes of just being a scoring machine. And this is going to be a season where he's not behind Mikal Bridges. There's no real identifiable guy on this team. So that slot for being the guy is definitely up for grabs on this team. And you could say Jalen Wilson, a dude that killed, right? He played awesome at Summer League. So you could name him. I would go Cam Thomas, though. He's very young. So he's not like this guy that's like 27 years old and he is who he is. We don't really know who Cam Thomas is, other than the fact that we know he can really score the ball, right? He is not afraid to take grenades, take tough shots. He is an absolute bucket. And I feel like if he does get this green light on this bad Brooklyn Nets team, he could definitely be the X Factor. We're really going to see what he's about now with more responsibility this season. So definitely interested to see that. He's my X Factor for the Nets. Charlotte Hornets Maan. This is a good name. This was part of that trade for Gordon Hayward that OKC made. I loved Maan last year at Summer League. He basically wasn't being used on OKC. They have so many guards. This is a dude that's very skilled. If you want to know what he's capable of, go on YouTube and watch his Summer League from last year. The dude was unstoppable. He was killing in Summer League. Interesting player. I wasn't a big fan of him on OKC. I felt like there was just too many guards. I didn't see how he would fit on that team. So it made sense when they moved him. They moved Micic in that package. I forget who else they gave up. Or maybe it was just a bunch of picks. I'm not even sure right now. Just thinking off the top of my head. Maan's definitely an interesting name. I would actually say the X factor is Brandon Miller. He's going to be year 2. And I think that if he has a big season, they may move on from LaMelo Ball if he has another injury-riddled season. Now, I read somewhere online that LaMelo Ball is going to be wearing ankle braces now to help combat the ankle problems that have just plagued him. So, I don't know. Like, if LaMelo Ball has an unhealthy season where he gets hurt again, you have to think at some point they're going to start thinking, okay, we're going to have to move on and find another person to be the guy, right? As special as LaMelo Ball is, he's very fun to watch. He's exciting. He's a fun guy, you know, gives you a reason to want to watch the Hornets. But if Brandon Miller takes off, maybe they go in his direction and then decide to kind of move away from LaMelo Ball, right? I don't know what their patience is with him when every season it's like, oh, if LaMelo Ball's healthy, like that's always the question every single season. Every time we talk about the Hornets, we have the over-under pods where we try to predict like their win-loss record, and it's always with the contingency, like, oh, well, if LaMelo's healthy, you know, and either way, they're a bad team. So I don't know. Chicago Bulls, Josh Giddy. This one's a no-brainer. I'm not going to spend much time on it. I 100% agree. They finally moved Caruso, right? It was a straight-up trade, player for player. Some people are upset. I don't know what they're upset about because Caruso is a win-now player that doesn't fit the timeline with the Bulls. They traded away DeMar DeRozan. So obviously Caruso was next on that list. You got to trade a guy while he's valuable, especially if he doesn't fit your timeline. I did a small pod on the Bulls, kind of talking about it during the trade deadline, wondering if the clock was ticking, and I was wondering if they were finally going to move DeRozan or potentially lose him for nothing. Obviously, they were able to re-sign him and trade him, so that was really good for them. But yeah, Josh Giddy, if you know me, if you follow this pod, you know how much I love Josh Giddy. Just one of the most fun players to watch for me. I love watching passers. Jokic, Sabonis, Draymond Green is also a great passer. There's just a bunch of them. Şengün, you know, Giddy's one of those guys. I think with the size, he has a lot of potential. He fits the timeline. They're going to hand him the keys, right? See what he can do with this team. More responsibility because he wasn't going to be given this type of responsibility on OKC. He's been on record talking about not wanting to come off the bench, and they went separate ways, right? I think this is a great opportunity for Giddy. Absolute X factor for the Bulls for sure. Darius Garland for the Cavs. I disagree with this one. I think that I feel like he is who he is, even though he's still really young. But I just feel like next to Donovan Mitchell, even if we get great Darius Garland, I kind of know what it looks like, right? He's going to have a good assist count. We know that. He makes really good passes. He can obviously score. Plays really quick, needs the ball in his hand. You know, I feel like the X factor for this team is the same X factor that I felt last season, which is Evan Mobley. And I don't think I have to spend much time on that. If you disagree with me, you can drop it in the comments, but I feel like Evan Mobley is their X factor. He is a guy that makes them such a unique team. Like, yeah, you have that double guard backcourt thing that teams have tried, right? Like we've seen it with CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. This is like a lesser version of that. I don't know. Maybe it's an even version of that. I like the backcourts equally, but I feel like Evan Mobley with the defensive versatility, with the shot potential, right? Like he's kind of slowly developing the jumper. He brings a lot to the team, and I feel like he is the better name to think of an X factor for a team. Right? A guy that's not going to get all the shots. He's not going to get a ton of usage, right? He's going to clean up kind of the dirty work, right? He's going to do the dirty work. If the ball finds him, he's going to try to do something with it, right? But more of his impact is on the defensive side for now. And I feel like if he does develop more of the offensive side of his game, he's going to make a tremendous impact on this team. That's why I feel like he's the X factor. I feel like if they get a super Evan Mobley versus a super version of Darius Garland, they would be much better. So I'm going with Mobley. Mavs. Another one I'm going to agree with, Klay Thompson. They acquired him. This was a no-brainer fit, right? Some people are saying, well, he's going to be standing around in the corners. He's going to be sitting around watching Luka isolate. And that could be true, you know, because Luka does love his isolations. Kyrie loves his isolations. But Luka finds the open man. We can't, there's no one's going to argue that. Luka finds his teammates in situations where you don't even know how he found his teammates. He is for sure the X factor to this team. Okay. He's going to be basically the missing link to what this team really needed. Like, they had Darius Jones Jr. in one corner, and they had PJ Washington in another corner, right? Running offense. Teams were okay with letting them shoot, right? On pick and rolls, they're tagging and they're staying on the roller, and they're closing out late on PJ Washington or closing out late on Darius Jones Jr. Good luck closing out late on Klay Thompson, right? This is going to be a very interesting fit, and I think that if he does what he's supposed to do, right, which is knock down threes at 40%, which he's been able to do his whole career, this is going to be a very scary team. Denver Nuggets, Christian Braun, right? We know kind of the player that he is at the moment, and I don't see him like doing much different. I feel like obviously with more opportunity, his numbers are going to be a little bit better, but I feel like his role is play defense, make the most out of the minimal touches you get, do the dirty work, grab an offensive rebound out of nowhere from time to time, make the most out of the little time that you got, right? And now he may be starting. So can he be the X factor? I don't know. I feel like the better name for an X factor is Peyton Watson because of the higher potential with him. Like, this is a freak athlete. He can play multiple positions. He can potentially play center. Like, I don't know that they want to do that, but he can do a lot of different things. He just can't shoot right now. And he takes them. He takes threes. But I feel like Peyton Watson, if he can shoot league average from three and, you know, not turn the ball over, doing crazy things sometimes, he could really make a huge impact for this team, because this team needs defense. This team needs positional versatility. And it needs depth, right? That's why they went out and got Westbrook too, right? Someone that can kind of help out while Jokic is resting, right? Because we know about the minutes when Jokic is off. Team's just not good anymore, right? Like last year, the bench was not good. They were bottom in almost every category as a second unit. So, you know, Westbrook coming off the bench, that's going to help, right? I don't think Westbrook's going to start. He's definitely going to be coming off the bench. So it's most likely Christian Braun that's going to start, but I feel like the X factor is Peyton Watson. If you're not familiar with Peyton Watson, go on YouTube, check him out, and let me know what you think. Assar Thompson for the Pistons. I agree with this one. I think that he showed a lot. He has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the league. The Pistons are a complicated one. Like, they don't really have a star, right? Their guy is Cade Cunningham, right? But he's not a star yet. He has a lot of potential. With the size that he plays at point guard, able to make plays, he could score. He was hurt last year. You could argue Cade Cunningham is their X factor. He's their best player, and technically he's not a star, right? So, but I'm going to agree with Assar Thompson. You know, the guy that has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the league. He has all NBA defense potential, like perennial all NBA defense potential. And I think that this is a good name. Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kaminga, 100% agree. This guy has been in trade rumors, and the Golden State Warriors, time and time again, like it feels like every season, they have him as an untradeable piece. Anytime they hear about Kaminga, or Draymond Green's on a pod talking about Kaminga, everyone says this guy is not going to be moved. He is their future. He has all the potential. So clearly, he is the X factor this season. Like, this is a guy that they have basically stopped improving their roster because of what they believe he can do. This is going to be a season where Klay Thompson is no longer in the picture. There's no Chris Paul. So he's going to get a ton of opportunity. This is going to be the season for Jonathan Kaminga. Like, if any season was the one for him, it's this one. He's had the reps now. He was complaining about his minutes and his usage and his role on the team last season. He's going to be the X factor for sure. Like, if he is as good as Golden State believes, then that's going to change the course of their season potentially, right? Like, I'm not too high on the Warriors this year. I'm really not convinced about this team. I don't feel like they've gotten better. I feel like, if anything, they've gotten worse. But that remains to be seen. Kaminga definitely the X factor for these guys. Houston Rockets, Jabari Smith Jr. I think I saw this one when I was like scrolling through super quickly. I only saw like 5 names, but Jabari Smith Jr. was playing at center for some points in time, right? He was kind of like that Şengün replacement when Şengün got hurt as well. There are rotations where they run Jabari Smith at the 5, and they look obviously more mobile. They look more spacey. And I feel like if you say that Jabari Smith's the X factor, I think that I wouldn't disagree with it, because I think if he shows a serious jump this year, those Şengün trade rumors could be like, they could be arriving quicker than we thought. Like, there were Şengün trade rumors last season. There were Şengün trade rumors after the season, right? Jalen Green was attached to that too. So I don't know, is he an X factor this year? He certainly brings a lot to the table, right? He's a guy that can potentially defend multiple positions, right? He showed a lot on the defensive end. Not a lockdown defender yet, but he is a guy that has shown a lot of flashes of his ability to defend multiple positions, right? He can also potentially be a good rebounder, right? And we know about the shooting, right? That's something that we're always looking at with him, the shot making, right? His size and his athleticism, right? He's not like uber quick or uber athletic, but he's definitely good for his size. So he could be someone that if he breaks out, it could shake up the roster, because maybe they say, okay, you know what? We're better off with Jabari at the 5, and maybe they move Şengün. I don't want them to move Şengün. I think that would be a big mistake if they do that. I think Şengün's got so much potential. He could be like their baby Jokic, running offense for them. And I'm a huge fan of Şengün. I think that would be a mistake to trade him. I think the X factor is probably Jabari. If I had to think of someone else as an X factor, I would actually argue Jalen Green. And I say this because he is this guy that everyone believes that they know who he is already and who he's going to be. Just a volume scorer, a guy that's maybe inefficient throughout his whole career, and explosive, freak athlete, and fun to watch. And that may be who he is. Maybe he improves the efficiency as time goes by. I think that Jalen Green's an X factor for one reason only. I feel like if he shows that he could be the guy on this team, because they've got so many guys on this team. There are so many names. This team has so much talent that you don't know who the guy is going to be. Like, some people think it's Şengün. Some people think it's Jabari Smith. Some people think it's Jalen Green. Some people think it's Reed Shepherd. But this team has a lot of names. It's going to be interesting with this team. I'm going to say that the X factor is Jalen Green, because he could potentially swing what this team looks like if they decide to move him, because he doesn't look as good. Like, if he shows like that he's kind of just going to be the same type of guy, then maybe they're turned off by it, and maybe they move him to kind of try to improve the roster for more pieces to win now. Because I'm sure a lot of teams would definitely want to take Jalen Green and check him out, see what he's got. So I feel like he's an X factor in terms of kind of swinging what this team could look like. Like, if he's great, obviously this team gets to the next level. And maybe they shift the roster other ways. Like, if the trade talk was between Şengün or Jalen Green, and Jabari all of a sudden is good and Jalen Green is great and they feel like he could be the guy for them, then maybe they do move Şengün, and then they try to, swing that way and try to bring help for Jalen Green. The way he went out in the second half of this season, he was killing. So I feel like Jalen Green's the X factor. Andrew Nembhard for the Pacers. I love Andrew Nembhard. I've talked about him on this pod several times. I disagree with the Nembhard one. I think it's the guy that was out last season, right? He was a guy that people forgot about. This team had a run to the conference finals, and they didn't even have another important guy that scores a lot for them, that is also in his now 3rd year, and that's Ben Mathurin. I think Ben Mathurin is their X factor. This is a guy that still has a lot of untapped potential. He's a great athlete, score first mentality, doesn't care about who's in front of him. He could really be the missing link to give this team that extra punch. Now, this team has Jarris Walker, right? A guy that's, I believe, in his second season now, who they're banking on to hopefully be that two-way guy that does a little bit of everything, like trying to have him be like their Draymond Green. But I don't think he looked great in Summer League. I think he had a good Summer League, but I don't think he showed a lot of the defense that I was hoping for. And I was watching him pretty closely. He had good moments on defense, but not enough to make me think, okay, he's going to make an impact defensively for the Pacers. The Pacers need defense. So you could swing an X Factor guy that defends, right? And, you know, then you could pick another name other than Ben Mathurin because he's not a defender. But I'm going to go Ben Mathurin because he was the guy that was missing in this whole run, and he could make them better. Clippers Chris Dunn. This is such a random name. Look at what they're writing about him. If he maintains those shooting gains, he'll project as an elite backup for James Harden. I disagree with Chris Dunn. I don't know. I feel like they just didn't know who to name here. Like the Clippers have so many names. It's really hard to pick a guy. I'm going to go with Kevin Porter Jr. He was a dude that showed a lot on the Rockets. Inefficient player. He turned the ball over often. But that dude was a bucket. He had an awesome handle. He was like, they called him like budget James Harden. And he's still young. And, you know, he had that court case. There was some things going on with him. And that's why, you know, the Rockets were kind of forced to move on from him. But I think he's the X factor. Like, this is a guy that people still believe has all-star potential. And he's going to be on their bench, potentially making a name for himself on a team that needs that power, right? Now that Paul George is gone, they're going to have to find it elsewhere. And I feel like there's some scoring punch with Bones Highland that they haven't really explored that much. But also Kevin Porter Jr. I think people have forgotten about Kevin Porter Jr. So be on the lookout for him for sure. He's my X factor. Lakers Gabe Vincent. This one, I disagree with this one as well. I don't think it's Gabe Vincent. Now, they're probably naming him because he was that big-ish name that came from the Heat that was very impactful for the Miami Heat through that whole finals run that they had. So, you know, and I was on that boat. I thought Gabe Vincent was going to be a great pickup. He got hurt. And then when he came back, you know, it was pretty much off his groove and stuff. So I don't know how I feel about this one. Although I would just argue and say, hey, man, the X factor is D'Angelo Russell. And it's easy for me to say D'Angelo because I feel like when he has good games, this team is on another level. When his shooting is right, when he's confident, when he's not messing around doing dumb things or not showing up, because he's known for that, this team takes on another level. And that's also going to push up his trade value. And it could shake up how this team looks, depending on how teams view D'Angelo Russell, if he's doing great, right? So I feel like D'Angelo's the X factor, both from a pump up the value perspective and from a this team's ceiling perspective. Like, he can really change up what this team looks like when he plays well, you know? So I'm going with D'Angelo Russell. Let's go to the next one. Memphis Grizzlies Zach Edey. Is he the X factor? Let's see here. It says it's unusual for a rookie to land in an X factor discussion, but it's also unusual for a rookie to project as a critical piece of a playoff team's starting lineup. I agree with that. You know, at first I'm thinking, you know, Zach Edey, I'm going to go with G.G. Jackson. And I'm saying this because he's a guy that had a lot of reps because of all the injuries last season. He looked really good in Summer League. I don't know what he's going to look like this season now. Has to take a little bit more of a back seat because, you know, the guys are back. And he definitely has a ton of potential. He's super young. I don't know if Zach Edey can sustain this season healthy. Like, you know, Summer League, he gets hurt right away. And those foot injuries with these big men, it's very concerning. Ja is a guy that loves to play fast. You know, and he's going to set great screens for Ja. Like the screens that Zach Edey is going to set for Ja Morant when he is out there with him, no one's getting around those screens. Like, they're going to have to go under, which is always the game plan on Ja, just go under. That screen is going to give Ja a ton of separation, and he's going to be able to just explode and eat space off of that. So obviously, yes, he is a great like they need a center because obviously Triple J is not that. He's a power forward at heart who fouls a ton, who doesn't really rebound great. And Zach Edey can do all that. I just don't know how he can, like, how is he going to be around enough to be that impactful X factor, right? Like, I would go a guy like Gigi Jackson, someone that's going to be most likely coming off the bench, right? Unless they find a role for him to start. And maybe he makes a big enough impact to help this team. Miami Heat, Khalil Ware. I agree with this one. But I'm going to pick a different name. Khalil Ware is a guy that I wanted them to get Kyle Filipowski, a guy that can play make at 7 feet. He can actually shoot, right? We saw it in Summer League as well. The fadeaways, the turnaround jumpers in the mid-range. The post footwork was clean from Filipowski. He was making really good passes. He was bringing the ball up. He has really good handle for a 7-footer. He was knocking down threes. Like, he was literally everything that the Heat need. He is just not this, like, incredible rim protector that Khalil Ware could potentially be. And I guess they're probably banking on maybe Khalil Ware's just higher ceiling. You know, just a better athlete, right? A guy that some people said, like, wasn't a hard worker and things like that, and that's why he slipped in the draft. And the Heat are kind of taking a chance on him. But watching Kyle Filipowski and watching Khalil Ware in Summer League, I was way more impressed with Kyle Filipowski. And I felt like, damn, he would have been great next to Bam. A floor spacing 7-footer to let Bam attack the paint and let Kyle just kind of space the floor for them. You know, I thought it was a great fit. They went with Khalil Ware, and I'm going to say it's Nikola Jovic. I've been on the Jovic train since before the draft, before his draft, and I continue to say he should be starting at the 4 for them. I really think that he's a guy that can really help push the pace. Another ball handler, bringing it up, space the floor. You know, just he brings things that teams are looking for from a guy that can play the 4, right? And he's like 6'11". He's not going to be the defensive guy that maybe Khalil Ware can be, but Jovic, I feel like, just brings a ton of more value to them right now. I feel like right now, I think if Jovic is what I feel like he's going to be, then he should be the X factor for the Heat. Gary Trent Jr. for the Milwaukee Bucks, which I disagree with, by the way. I know we can't go the star route because that's what this list says, so I understand why they said Gary Trent Jr. I'm going to break the rule and say that Damian Lillard is the X factor. This is the guy that they banked on in the offseason. They brought him over here. They felt like he was the solution. Drew Holiday had the last laugh. It looks like they made a mistake. The pairing with Giannis and Dame seemed like excellent. I said it was basically a match made in heaven. That's my literal words. Because Dame can pull attention away from Giannis and Giannis can pull attention away from Dame. I haven't liked how they've looked together. Dame is a high volume scorer. He needs the ball. He needs a lot of shots. Giannis needs the ball. Other guys lose rhythm because they're standing around watching Giannis and Dame play 2-man games. I think that if Dame has a phenomenal season, that's going to move the needle. Like, I don't think if Gary Trent Jr. has a great season, it's going to move the needle for these guys. Like, I feel like they banked on Dame, and Dame has to be, maybe not their best player because Giannis is their best player, but Dame has to be like 1A. And I feel like he didn't have a good season. I feel like he was just inconsistent. He would turn the ball over a lot. Kind of looked like he was trying to figure out the pick and roll game. I watched a pod of Damian Lillard recently, and he was talking about how difficult it was to adjust, right? Playing alongside a guy that plays a certain way, and, you know, in the back of his head, knowing that he has to let Giannis kind of rock, and then also think about Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. So it could just be the first year, you know, difficult thing to kind of figure out. So I'm going to go with Damian Lillard. Minnesota Timberwolves, Rob Dillingham. I don't know how they pick him as an X factor. He had a super inefficient summer league, and he showed a lot of good playmaking. Like, the dude was making great passes. He was breaking his defenders down. So Clearly, he didn't have trouble getting separation, getting to the rim, getting the looks he wanted. The shots just weren't falling. He looked a little crazy at times. But other than the shooting woes, he made good passes, really good playmaking skills that he displayed. So I get it. I know that there's a lot of hype around him as well. But I don't think that he's going to be as much of an impact as they think that he's going to bring, right? Like, I think the X Factor, for me, I would go Jaden McDaniels as their X Factor. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with that Jaden McDaniels is that X Factor. Like, this was a guy that when he was actually scoring, we know about the defense. The defense is just awesome. But when he was showing up offensively, this team was like impossible to beat. You know, he was like that Michael Porter Jr. X Factor for the Nuggets. Like, when Michael Porter Jr. was on, the Nuggets were like just this unsolvable problem. And I feel like when Jaden McDaniels is that, this team is on a whole other level, you know? So I'm going to go with Jaden McDaniels. Jordan Hawkins of the Pelicans. I strongly disagree with this one. I think it's Dejounte Murray. This is a guy that, look, they traded away Dyson Daniels, who is a guy that I really like, who I think has potential to be one of the best defenders in the league. And I think a lot of people that watch the Pelicans or know about Dyson Daniels agree with that. They also gave up Larry Nance Jr., a guy that helped rebound and filled a role, played, you know, kind of a versatile small ball 5 type of guy. I actually like Larry Nance Jr. And then, you know, the throw-in was EJ Liddell, right? A guy that I honestly thought was going to be really good for the Pelicans. He tore his ACL, I think it was, or his Achilles. I forgot what it was during his first summer league, and I think he was out the whole year. I don't know what EJ Liddell has, but I believe he got traded again to the Suns. I could be wrong about that. I think EJ Liddell is now in the Suns. But they basically gave up 3 guys for Dejounte Murray. And this is basically like, they didn't give up like the farm for him, but they did give up things that they're going to miss, right? Because they also don't have Valanciunas anymore. He's on the Wizards now. And Larry Nance Jr., Valanciunas, and even Dyson Daniels are guys that rebound. Guys that have size, right? Like, I am worried about the Pelicans this year. Side note, Willie Green is for sure on the hot seat. I can do a pod on that, which I've been thinking about doing one like that. But Jordan Hawkins, no. I like Jordan Hawkins. I just feel like Willie Green does not play these young guys. And that alone removes him from this for me, right? Like, love Jordan Hawkins. I think this dude has the skill set that this team really needs. And I don't see that he gets used enough. You know, and I could be wrong. Maybe you disagree with me. I'm going to go with, I could go Herb Jones. I love Herb Jones. But no, I'm going to go Dejounte Murray. Like, this is who the Pelicans believe is going to take them to the next level. Someone that can really be a dedicated playmaker, who can also rebound and defend. So yeah, Dejounte Murray is my X Factor. New York Knicks, Mitchell Robinson. I think I can see why, you know, because they don't have Hartenstein. That was a big loss for them. But they brought back Mikal Bridges, right? So this team going for that wing defense, right? The wing versatility, two-way players. But that leaves Mitchell Robinson on an island. A guy that's always hurt, limited offensive player, rim protector, rebounder. Very important for this team. Not a star. So he falls right into the X Factor category. I agree with this one. I was going to disagree, but thinking about it, like the depth chart for the centers, like they have like Ariel Hukporti. I forget that guy's name. Wasn't impressive in Summer League. Like, he had good games, but I don't think he's someone Knicks fans are like, oh yeah, we got Ariel Hukporti. We're good. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Mitchell Robinson, for sure, his health is going to matter a lot this year. So, I think if he gets hurt again, that could really hurt them this season. There's a lot of teams going big now, man. The Magic, the Cavs, the Sixers, the Nuggets. They're not going to see the Nuggets much, but, you know, the Lakers, like, I mean, these are teams, Wembanyama, you know, like, I get it. Those are Western Conference teams, but teams are big, man. And, you know, even the Celtics, right? Like, they have positional versatility. They got size, right? Length. And when you don't have rim protection, you're a very easy target to score on, you know? So Definitely an X factor. I agree with this one. OKC's Jaylen Williams. I can't say I disagree with it. If I had to pick, I would give Alex Caruso the X factor label. But because Jaylen Williams isn't a star, he fits this perfectly. The definition that they gave us in the beginning. Jaylen Williams for sure is the X factor for this team. Like, he's a guy that people believe if it wasn't for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on this team, he would be the guy, potentially. Like, people really believe that. Some people say Chet Holmgren. I'm not going to argue that, right? I love Chet Holmgren as well. You could argue Chet Holmgren's the X factor for this team. Like, there are so many, like, this team has so many guys. I could spend an hour talking about who could be an X factor. Cason Wallace, who I guarantee you they don't even name in here. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not gonna spend all that time scanning through that and waste time on this video. But Cason Wallace can be an X factor for these guys. Lou Dort can be an X factor. Like, these guys, the team is stacked. They're going to probably have the best record in the Western Conference, maybe the best record in the league. You know, outside of Jaylen Williams, I would go Alex Caruso for sure. Orlando Magic, Jonathan Isaac. You know, it's funny. I wasn't even thinking about this team, and I love this team so much. Jonathan Isaac, X Factor. I think this is a good one. You know, I definitely do, but I can think of a better one than Jonathan Isaac. Like, yes, he changes the game for them defensively. This is an already good defensive team. Obviously, his three-point shooting looked like it was improving through the second half of the season. He was knocking them down with some confidence. That's going to be huge for them. Obviously, if he can knock that down at an average clip, 35 to 36%, I guess he would be the X factor, because then they would kind of start moving towards him at the 5, right? But it's hard to have Isaac at the 5 because he can't shoot, right? Like, I mean, he kind of can now. But teams are still going to sag off. Teams are still going to close out late on him. Obviously, they have KCP now. And then they have a couple of other guys that they're hoping, you know, like Tristan Da Silva and Jet Howard, right? Guys that they're hoping can really improve, right? Like, these guys are guys that they come in and they're shooters. So hopefully they show that as well. I want to name someone other than Jonathan Isaac, just for the sake of argument. And I'm going to go with Franz Wagner, because I feel like Paolo had an amazing season, and he looks like the best player on this team. I would go, if I had to like cut one of these two guys, I'm cutting Franz. Like, if I had to choose between one or the other, I'm going with Paolo to stay on the Magic. Like, Franz needs to get that shot down. If he develops that three-point shot, this team is going to, I mean, they could get to a conference finals. I'm that confident in that if Franz can develop that three-point shot, because, my God, teams are putting centers on Franz. I'm watching Tristan Thompson, and I broke that down on some videos during the playoffs. Tristan Thompson, or during the regular season as well, a 5-man, a traditional center guarding Franz and just sitting in the paint. And Franz will take it and airball it or hit the side of the backboard, or it just doesn't, you know, it's a concern of mine, you know. And Paolo has improved like slightly. He has shown improvement from 3 from one year to the next. Franz went the other way. I think that Franz Wagner being at his best is going to take this team to the next level, because I feel like he was kind of a weak link for them in the playoffs. Sixers Caleb Martin. This is I would not have thought of Caleb Martin. Honestly, when I think Sixers, I would have thought like Tyrese Maxey. I'm still going to go Maxey, because I feel like Maxey is going to be the third guy, like the third wheel now, right? Behind Embiid. Embiid's going to be the number 1 option. We know that. Paul George is comfortable in that second option. He strikes me as a guy that doesn't mind being the third option if the team is winning. He's all about winning. I really like Paul George's mentality. So you could argue that Maxey will be the second option on this team. But considering the fact that Paul George is obviously a star player, right? We know that. We can't pick him. So I would go Maxey. I think Maxey's the X factor. If he can still be as good as he is, because he had this season without Harden. Now you're putting in that second star next to Embiid. He's going back to the third star on the team role. So I'm interested to see how good can he be going back a little bit, right? Having to share the wealth again a little bit more than he did last year. Because last year he had a big responsibility. You know, Embiid missed a lot of games as well. And he took that on and he was awesome. Phoenix Suns, Royce O'Neal. What are we talking about here? I don't know what the hell they're thinking with Royce O'Neal. All I ever heard about with the Suns was these guys need a point guard. These guys need a point guard. I disagreed with that, by the way. I feel like they had enough guard play, even though they didn't really have a traditional point like it was Devin Booker. But I felt like this team needed real rim protection, like more defense, right? Like I just felt like a point guard wasn't going to make them that much better than a real rim protector would. Even though Nurkic did a decent job, but I feel like they needed to address defense more than a traditional point. So I'm going to go based on the desires of everyone else and say that it's Tyus Jones. Everyone was talking about how badly this team needed a point guard. Well, now they have one of the guys that takes care of the ball the best in the league, doesn't turn it over, smart player, is a point guard, right? And now that they have him, he's going to be the X factor because he is the type of player that everyone was crying about, that the Suns needed. Let's go to the Trailblazers. Scoot Henderson. Some people are going to argue Shaedon Sharpe because obviously he's been on the team a little bit longer. I'm going to go with Scoot. He was a guy that, you know, it was Brandon Miller, Scoot, and Wemby, right, coming into that draft. And I was huge on Scoot Henderson. I was like, okay, after the Spurs take Wemby, the next team should take Scoot. I looked horrible for that take, and I'm probably still looking bad for that take. I still believe in Scoot. I love the potential he has. If the shot can fall, if the turnovers cut down, if he just plays under more control. I think he was better in the second half of the season. Hard to tell, you know, what kind of player he's going to be, but I like his potential more than Brandon Miller. That's just me, you know. Nothing against Brandon Miller. I think Brandon Miller's looked way better. So I'm not saying that Scoot Henderson is the better guy right now. I just believe in Scoot's potential more than Brandon Miller's. Sacramento Kings, Keon Ellis, who was awesome last year. I don't know how Keon Ellis makes this list. Like, we can't go DeMar because we can't go the star route, right? I'm going to go with Keegan Murray. He showed a lot. I feel like he is the X factor. Like, if he continues to develop and be that, because Harrison Barnes isn't on this team anymore. And he can really take on the mantle of that, right? Like, he can be that Harrison Barnes for these guys. And I think he'll be better than Harrison Barnes down the line. I really like Keegan Murray's game. I feel like he's the X factor. San Antonio Spurs, Jeremy Sohan. I don't like this one. I feel like it's Devin Vassell, right? Like, a guy that was Wemby's, you know, second guy. In my opinion, he got the bag last year. I was really positive on him. I still think he has a lot of potential. So I'm going to disagree with Jeremy Sohan, and I'm going to go with Devin Vassell. Toronto Raptors, Grady Dick. I disagree with this one. I know where they're going with this. They need shooting, and he's this guy that projected as a shooter. Let's see what they say. Grady Dick's outside shooting prowess got him drafted in the lottery. Literally what I just said. So, like, yeah, you know, when they drafted him, I knew immediately why they took him. I mean, this was a team that could not shoot threes. They have zero spacing. And I don't know how it's going to look next season, right? But I'm going to go with Emmanuel Quickley as the X factor. He was like the big name. Obviously, RJ Barrett's there. You could go RJ Barrett as the X factor. You could even say Scotty Barnes. You know, well, can you? I don't know. I don't think he counts in this list. So I'm going to go with Quickley. I think Quickley is the type of player that they're looking for. A guy that can shoot off the bounce, get to the rim, make some good passes. Exciting player, right? If we get a great Emmanuel Quickley season, I think this team has a higher ceiling than if we get a great Grady Dicks season. That's just me. Especially since Emmanuel Quickley's going to have the ball a whole lot more. Utah Jazz, Taylor Hendricks. If you're interested in Taylor Hendricks, what a coincidence. I made a video for Taylor Hendricks a couple of days ago. Me talking about my thoughts on watching him in Summer League. I watched all his Las Vegas Summer League games, and it was underwhelming. But he did show some promise. Definitely a guy that has a lot of potential. But I think they drafted him 9th a year ago. And If you're drafted in the lottery, I know you can't control where you get drafted. It's all on, the GM. But they drafted him 9th. And he looks very raw still, if you ask me. Do I think Taylor Hendricks is the X factor? No. I'm going to go Keontae George. Exciting point guard, quick, shifty, not afraid to shoot the ball. He is very fun to watch. He makes good passes too. Didn't watch a lot of Utah last year. I want to say I watched maybe like 35 games. But Keontae George, man. Obviously, we're not going the Larry Markkinen route because we can't based on the rules of the X Factor here. But I think it's Keontae George. Like, I really don't think that Taylor Hendricks is going to bring as much of an impact to be an X Factor. Like, yeah, he's the versatile guy and the potential great rebounder and, guy that can defend multiple positions. But the way he plays, I just don't feel like it's X Factor-ish. Especially not as soon as next season. Washington Wizards, Bilal Coulibaly? No, I'm going to go with Jordan Poole. This is a dude that when they acquired him, people were saying this was the next Gilbert Arenas. This was going to be like the potential high-scoring franchise dude with the green light. Gonna average 28 a game. And he was far from that for the Wizards. They had a horrible year. Poole was getting benched. He was immature. There was a rift with the coach. It just didn't look good, and I feel like he needs to be under the magnifying glass. I think this season's gonna go, if they get a great Jordan Poole season, like, he's a dude that can drop 30 on any given night, and that can really, change a lot for this team night to night. I mean, I don't think this team's gonna be good, even though they have some pieces like they have Malcolm Brogdon, Jonas Valanciunas, so this team has improved from names on the team perspective. But I feel like the X factor on this team is Jordan Poole. X factors are always fun because it's just so subjective, That's going to do it for this one. This one was fun. I think it went a little longer than I thought, but hope you enjoyed the video.